Hey there, nerds. Jimmy Palmquist here, and I have the pleasure, the honor, to speak about Star Wars The Force Awakens. I was lucky enough to see it on Tuesday at an early press screening. There were only about 15, maybe 20 people in the theater, and it was amazing to see it premiere it in that atmosphere. Now, on the flip side, I absolutely loved when the prequels came out and going to see the premiere at midnight and all the fans dressed up for Revenge of the Sith out here in Vegas. There were actually people up in front reenacting fight scenes. It was nerdy as hell, and it was amazing. So that's the only downside of seeing it at a press screening, but I didn't have to put up with people, to put it bluntly. Now, that being said, there was a certain reviewer who insisted on going on and on and on about Han and Chewie and their relationship and how they met, and devolving it to the point of speculating that maybe they were a couple and they were in a relationship like that. And I had to say something. And I asked if she would like to hear the truth. And anybody who knows me knows I am introverted. I do not like talking to people. I am much more comfortable behind a computer. I just don't go out of my comfort zone. Now, if you're my friend, obviously I'll talk to you, but I just don't go out of my comfort zone. But I couldn't stand the ignorance that I was hearing. So I asked if she would like to hear the truth, and there were about 6 other reviewers right around her, critics who, started listening in, and I gave the history of Chewbacca and Han. And it occurred to me as I'm saying that, Chewbacca was a slave for the Empire, and Han was actually in the Academy for the Empire. He was a pilot, and he saw what was going on with Chewbacca, and he freed him. And Chewbacca, according to his beliefs as a Wookiee, took it upon himself to have a life debt, meaning he would stay with Han Solo until he was able to repay this amazing debt. And that, in the extended universe, which doesn't really exist anymore, that means giving up his life to save Han or his kids. So it's an amazing relationship that he develops, and then it goes beyond just that debt, in that they become like the best friends in the galaxy, pilot, co-pilot, and have just an amazing relationship. So after explaining that, I realized I'm in a theater with critics. Now, that's not to say there weren't other fans in the theater. I know specifically Josh Bell was there, and I know he's a Star Wars fan and a fellow nerd. But for the most part, there were just film critics in this theater. And I realized I'm not one of them. I am 100% fanboy. I know more about Star Wars than I care to admit. I will say that my knowledge of Star Wars has decreased over the years, simply because the universe of Star Wars has been expanding. And to that end, the universe that I knew of Star Wars was cut off when the canon was redeveloped. So a lot of what I know with Star Wars is sort of a what-if galaxy now. I do know a good amount of the prequels. Obviously I've seen all the movies, but I've read a lot of the books. And I know people hate on the prequels, and people are so frustrated they exist and really hate George Lucas for making them. But the universe that came about because of those prequels is pretty amazing. Not to mention the books based off the movies are good. They're far better than the films themselves. So if you ever get a chance, go check them out, because they give insight into things that you just didn't get in the movies, and they're far better. But then there's books that led off of that are just phenomenal. One of my favorites is Shatterpoint, which focuses on Mace Windu, and it's just a phenomenal story. Not to mention the animated series, that one came out on Cartoon Network, but then the other one, which was the Clone Wars, just great animation and great storytelling. So yeah, I'm a fan of the prequels in that they told great stories in the extended universe, and that, as far as I know, is canon. So, sorry, back to my point. I know a lot about Star Wars. So going into this, I had preconceived notions, specifically ones that tied to, like Timothy Zahn's The Thrawn Trilogy, or The Dark Empire by Dark Horse Comics, and a slew of other books. So I thought, okay, I know that's not canon, but let's go in and see what we've got. Now, this is the point in this review where there may or may not be spoilers. To me, some of them aren't great, but some of them, they might spoil the movie for you. So I'm going to tell you, if you are afraid, turn it off here. I'll let you know, I enjoyed the movie very much. Go in as a fan, just enjoy it for Star Wars. If you don't want to see spoilers, turn it off. My disappointment, and I wouldn't say disappointment, because that's the connotation with that word gives it that I didn't like the movie. It was more that I was confused in that I didn't understand the universe we were in. There is no empire. There is no alliance per se. There is a Senate, but the Senate is not there for long. And there is a resistance, and General Organa, Leia, is leading this resistance. And that, to me, was very confusing because I don't understand how we get from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens, where the Empire doesn't exist, and we need a new resistance, yet there is a Senate, which I'm assuming is part of what came out of the Rebellion and the Alliance. So I'm assuming that gap will be filled up with new information, and for all I know, there already have been books told about this stuff. I don't know. Unfortunately, as you get older, you get more time commitments, and I have a family, and I'm not able to dedicate the time I once could to this stuff. So in that sense, it was confusing. What I really appreciated and I liked, from the word go with the opening scroll, we learn what is going on with Luke and why he wasn't in the trailers. I thoroughly appreciated that. I thought that was phenomenal to start out right away. Here's our journey. Cool. I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed Daisy Ridley. I think John Boyega was fantastic. I think their roles in the trailers were a little deceiving. And for that matter, I thought the trailers didn't give any of the story away. So I know people are guessing, oh, I know what happens. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I thought Adam Driver was a fantastic bad guy. And here's again, I'm going to see this movie again, opening night in 3D, which the screening I saw was 2D. But I believe there was mention that the Sith don't exist, and that instead they've been replaced by Kylo Ren's order, which I believe they referred to as Ren. So again, information I need to have, because from what I know of my history, it's always been the dark side was the Sith. So I find this interesting, and I am completely ignorant in a universe that I once knew a ton about. Very curious about that. But Adam Driver's acting was fantastic. It's interesting to see, and this is where we have to separate it. We are most closely remembering the prequels, where we had Jedi everywhere, Sith everywhere, fantastic lightsaber battles. It was great. Well, we have to go back to Return of the Jedi, when there's essentially only 2 trained people in the Force. Well, 3 if you count the Emperor. So you have Darth Vader and Luke. And their lightsaber battles are, as George Lucas has described, old and slower and not nearly as practiced. Well, now we're to a point where there really aren't any Jedi and there is no training. So Adam Driver, he throws a lot of hissy fits. And it's no wonder why, because he has no idea how to use the dark side. We're used to Darth Vader, who is very reserved and doesn't let his emotions out. Yeah, we saw a little bit with Anakin, again, the prequels. But Darth Vader is just cold and calculating. So when you see Adam Driver or Kylo Ren, throw hissy fits, it's interesting. And it's like, wow, okay, this is an interesting side to the dark side. I like that. I dig it. I wasn't thrilled that from this movie we already have an Emperor type figure, and he comes off as a goofy Harry Potter CGI character. I'm not exactly sure where that's going, played by Andy Serkis. The thing I liked is that it shows it, and he's huge, and you're like, is this a world of giants? Did we already come to Lord of the Rings or something? And then you realize as that transaction ends, it's not, it's a hologram. You're like, okay, whew. good. Cool, just a projection. No idea what it was. I can imagine it just being Yoda-sized or something. Who knows? But we get a sneak peek at their big bad guy in the first film. I also wasn't thrilled that we're back to sort of a Death Star, and instead of actually being a Death Star, which is totally artificial planet, we have something along the lines of a star killer, not like the Kevin J. Anderson books, but a planet that is converted to a weapon that eats stars for energy, then destroys other planets. Interesting concept, and it'd be fantastic if we'd never seen anything like this before, but we've seen a Death Star 3 times now, and it's like, okay, I think they could have come up with something new, or for that matter, you think maybe they could have protected it a little better and known its weaknesses? So there are a lot of references and recycled material from the first trilogy that isn't necessarily bothersome. It's just like, okay, it would have been cool if they had reimagined it in a different way. That being said, I really enjoyed this movie. There were minor moments that kind of reminded me of the prequels, and it was sort of some stilted acting, some just cheesy moments where it was like, really? Is George Lucas directing this? I don't understand why JJ would do that. And it might be an homage. I'm not entirely sure. They don't get in the way of the story. It would be more like, okay, here's a director's cut. We're going to take this scene out, whatever. Or I guess maybe we're seeing a director's cut, and the other one would have been, we're going to take this scene out because it really doesn't advance the story. It was great seeing Harrison Ford back as Han Solo. Even better to see Chewbacca. And Chewbacca's up and running around, and I'm so happy that they brought Mayhew back, but I'm so glad they have obviously a stunt double doing most of the work, because it's great to see Chewbacca in action. Really enjoyed General Organa, aka Princess Leia, who is no longer a princess. But there's a great scene in the opening where we have a reference to, I will always remember her as royalty. And it's just like, oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I love how they bring that up, and you obviously get a sneak peek of, whoa, things have changed. I thought her character was still strong, but given the time frame that has passed, and obviously things have happened, we're seeing that she's tortured, and she's driven, but she's not as, I would say, confident in everything she's doing. Like, she's just choo in the original trilogy, but in this one, it's definitely sort of a reserved look at how things are going to go. I think the addition of the new characters are phenomenal. I really, really liked how this story played out at the end. I think Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, is fantastic. I'm so curious where her character is going to go. Again, John Boyega, Finn, very curious where his character is going to go. And I think that leads to sort of my summation. I want more, because this is a new universe for the first time in a very long time. I don't know where the Star Wars universe is going. When the prequels came out, we knew this is leading in to the original trilogy. We knew that. We know what's going to happen to Anakin. We know. This time, we have no idea where this world is going. And I think Lucasfilm and the creative team really made that apparent, that this is a new world. We can tell movies that tie in Return of the Jedi to this, like we're going to have Rogue Squadron. We're going to have all sorts of offshoots. This is just the beginning, and now we have a whole new world, and we're going to start from here and tell a new story. And it involves the Skywalkers again. And man, oh man, as I said before in my written review, check it out on Nerdlocker.com, the universe would be a lot better off without the Skywalkers in it. Because once again, we're telling the story of bringing balance to the Force. And clearly, and I don't know how it happened, but clearly the Force is out of balance. And it's all the Skywalker family's fault. Check out this movie as a fan. Have fun with it. Whatever expectations you have, go in with as blank a slate as you can, because those expectations are way too high and unrealistic. Not to mention the fact that the story has changed so much, you won't have a clue. Go check it out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. May the Force be with you.